You're not allowed to question the narrative on such things.
Yes, people, welcome along Red Pill Phil on YouTube.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Oh, goddamn hacker, that second time night that asshole's cut in.
How long we'll be on here, we don't know. Jesus, with the draconian measures that feel like they're being rolled out. Barely even got a voice. And even if you have, you get slammed down for having an opinion. Even celebrities are going through it. There's a kind of, almost like a conscious purge that I'm seeing with certain celebrities. Certain celebrities want to speak out on very many issues, on the way society is changing and how the media plays a big part in that. And obviously some celebrities are just going along to get along. We got two darlings of daytime TV here, Eamon Holmes and Ruth Langford, I do believe her name is. They're both married, but you wouldn't think so by the names. Obviously heavily influenced on their own individual careers over the fact that they're both a married couple. That's the way I perceive it, but they are entitled to have separate names. Many people do, but it seems like independently they're more concerned about their individual careers and being a union. But fair play, decent people. They seem to be what I would regard as grey presenters, nothing to do with complexion, just because the way they come across, they never seem to rock the boat. There always seems to come across where they're fair to everyone, which is fine. But sometimes it'd be nice to get a little bit of conviction, a little bit of passion, and just a little bit of them really just speaking up and just giving their own opinions on things. There could be a couple of reasons as to why that doesn't happen. One, because they haven't got it in them, or two, because they are totally worried about their careers moving forward and they don't want to rock the boat. That's fine. Everyone's entitled to do that. The way I see it is, I think that time has passed now where people stay silent, not to promote hatred or intolerance, or not to promote an ideology that's going to be harmful and detrimental to anyone, other than just to think, just to not always go with a narrative and to critically think as a human being. That's the only starting point I would suggest anyone goes to, even with bannings and curtailment that we get. So we're living in an amazing time, without a doubt. So these two people, daytime TV this morning, the interview a lady called Denise Welsh. Now, most people from the UK will know exactly who Denise Welsh is. Famous actress, done many TV shows over the years. I love her work. She's funny as anything. She's obviously got conviction and she's got something about her which makes her more of a character for me. You know, she don't just play the game when the camera's on. You'll get the real Denise. And that's what I do like to see. I like to see the real people. She's been in many TV shows. I think currently she is in on a daytime TV show called Loose Women. Not my kind of bag. With Denise, she suffers from depression, or she has done in her life. And she's been outspoken about that. And from what I hear, she does a lot of work to raise awareness for that. That's brilliant. So she comes on this morning and she starts to talk about the element of depression and anxiety which is rising. One of the causes she feels is that the media is playing a part in scaring people rather than uplifting people. The implementations, the lockdowns, all the regulations and guidelines we have to currently go under, I have to question that, critically thinking moving forward, if we run alongside the implementations with the actual so-called pandemic, the deaths, as opposed to other deaths that happen, then you've got to at least think, is it justified? So I think this is where Denise is coming from in terms of depression and anxiety, because she can see that there's a growing amount of people, if they haven't got anxiety already, they're getting it. If they haven't got depression already, they're getting it. And then if you've already got it, it's being compounded even more. So imagine that'll stretch off into suicide rates, that'll stretch off into abuse, domestic, physical, sexual, whatever you want, across the board. We can talk about doing the right thing for COVID and vulnerable people, that's fine. But by protecting so-called vulnerable people, by having these overbearing implementations, there's other vulnerable people that are being ignored almost, you could say. So Denise was on here to even it up. These two, Eamon and Ruth, were here as middle of the roads presenters to try and listen to her argument. And I thought it was fascinating, one, for the way Denise come across, and two, for the way Eamon and Ruth come across. There'll be many reasons on both sides, so I just thought I'd run through this clip and just try and break it down as and when. Here we go.
Fears for the future of the UK economy grow. Many cities and towns remain deserted, despite the government's plea for people to get back to work.
Now, the actress and Loose Women panellist Denise Welch believes that this is the result of scaremongering by many in the media and government. And she joins us today alongside our very own Dr. Sarah Kaya to explain more on all of this. Denise, why have you got talking about this? Why do you feel you want to articulate this? Because you know, as you do, this is only your opinion. This is not the facts and figures being given to us by the government, or the interpretation, which I think you've got the main problem with by the media. Why are you putting your head above the parapets on this?
Is that a redundant question, Eamon? Looking at it now, Eamon has just basically said there, okay, what the government, what the establishment put out, they must be right. So we go along with that, and then we will get in a better place as a society, as a population. I mean, that's basically where he's coming from. So already, he's basically saying to Denise, what are you speaking up for? Why do you need to speak up?
Because you know, as you do, this is only your opinion.
The government has put out their rules. It's almost like he's saying to her, you're a big celebrity here. Why are you standing up here? Which leaves her pretty much alone at this point.
Why are you putting your head above the parapets on this?
Pretty much alone. There was no backing there. Was that middle of the road's way of presenting someone who was about to critically think? Or was that leaving someone bare? Now Denise has to come out. She knows this panel very well. She's a celeb just like these. But I do believe Eamon isolated her there. And that is a very middle of the roads, very safe place for him to be at.
To be honest, Eamon, I disagree with you there, if I may, because everything I do put out is actually based on the government's facts and figures. And I have taken a lot of criticism for this, but I've never felt so passionate about anything in my life. As you know, and Ruth knows very well, that I have been very outspoken as a mental health advocate for 31 years. So everything that I do publicly or on Twitter of this nature is trying to find a parity between how we deal with physical illness and how we deal with mental illness on the same level.
What I love about Denise already, love it. She's exuding it. It's quite arousing in a strange way, but I'm feeling a warmth, right? She's a celebrity. She's made it. She's up there. Whatever has gone on in her life, yeah, this may have played a part in her doing what she's doing now, but almost it's irrelevant. She's got the balls to stand there and go, I'm thinking of other people here. Not so much me. I may have made it. I'm all right. Considering when I look at the other population, I am all right. I'm high profile celebrity, and the chances are, well, until this, I will probably always get work. Well, let's see what happens after this. And I love that. I love off the bat. If we flip it to these two, I'm not saying these two haven't got a caring bone in the body, because I know they've covered many pieces where it is all about helping people. So I know that. But look at the way she's come off the bat here. She is speaking about a population of people that are going through severe depression, severe anxiety. Not her at this point, the mass of people. These guys, the way they seem to have started, they forget that they are broadcasting to the mass of people. The mass of people that idolize you. You're up there on your little pedestal. So it would be nice, it would be appropriate if you actually considered that not everyone is fully, one, going to understand this, two, believe it, and three, actually feel that they've got the right to question it, because you're already intimating, Eamon, that what the government have done is set a narrative. So for you to come on and speak in a different way is going against the narrative.
You're not allowed to question the narrative on such things.
This feels like just establishment media straight away, and Denise is up against a fight. It might be me looking too deep into it, but she's not getting too much love off these guys yet, even though she knows them well, probably loves them as people, as individuals. But you can see who's got the balls here and who hasn't.
And I have been shocked and appalled by the way the government and indeed our media have represented this virus to people. We now have the collateral damage where depression, clinical depression, that's major depressive disorder, has doubled in this country as a result of it. Anorexia is nearly doubled in young people because they feel like they're out of control of their lives. And basically for 5 months now, we have had a rolling death count every day. We've never had one for the 500 that die of cancer every day. We've never had one for 180 people who die of heart disease every day, or 20 plus at the moment who are dying of suicide every day.
I said this ages ago, and it's crazy because it's true. When I first looked into when the COVID was first breaking out, and it was all about the numbers and how many of the numbers were rising, and it was like, because it's rising, you've got to take it seriously, do as you're told in order to make the world a better place. When it comes to cancer, do you do the same thing? You don't. You don't give out numbers scaring the bejesus out of the population. Oh, there's another cancer patient. Oh, no. You tell them that life's going to get better. There's ways of improving. Look, let's do the runs. Look, ring the bell. There's another one who's been cured. Even though we know anyone who's slightly woke here, I'm not going to advocate anyone to do anything other than what they want to do. I'm not telling people what to do. But I have got the right to think. I've got the right to be able to read an article or several articles that give me a different point of view. Then am I not allowed to speak about that? Is that breaking the narrative? And that's what I love about this lady. Keep going, Denise. You go, girl.
Now, of course we haven't. But if we did, we'd all have been locked up because we couldn't be able to deal with it. But funnily enough, as things have improved drastically over the few months, I noticed that I didn't see the other day when the news starts, boom, nobody dies in the UK because of a corona-related illness. No, what we have is, boom, fears rise as spikes reach 1,075 positive tests a day.
Beautiful. I looked at the world meter quite a few weeks ago. I stopped looking at it because, you know, you can get kind of too drawn into it, and I think that's what they want. And one thing I noticed on the few times that I did look, they wasn't showing any recovery figures. And there was a couple of countries doing it, but not many. Most other countries were showing the rate of recovery, which gives you hope, shows whether you're toppling it. We can all have our own reasons or think that we know the reason why they're not doing it. But it's withholding important information. If you're going to tell me off the bat how many are getting it, wouldn't it be nice if you told me off the bat how many people are being cured of it? Just a thought. Even it out. That's what these guys are supposed to be doing, Mr. and Mrs. Gray.
So if you're going to frighten us with how many were dying every day, please enlighten us and tell us how things have improved, that when no one is dying.
Wouldn't it be nice if you told me off the bat how many people are being cured of it?
Because as a mental health person, and if people want to say she's on about that again, I don't care, because of the people that it does help.
Love her. Love her. She's on about that again. And there was Piers Morgan I said something about Denise, saying, Denise Welsh wears her depression like a designer handbag. Denise Welsh wears her depression like a designer handbag. What a pompous prick.
You're not allowed to question the narrative on such things.
Honestly, I've gone through different ranges with that guy. He comes across as if he knows everything and he's very eloquent. He's got a bit of a plum in his mouth and he's very strong-willed and got strong opinions. Great. You're good at talking over people and shouting over people. And then it swung to an area where I thought, you go, Piers, you've got a right to say that, da-da-da-da-da. And now he's swinging back to the original position where, who the hell are you, Piers? Are you the only one that's allowed an opinion, Piers? You like to scream from your platforms about what you believe and you want to slam who you want to slam. But someone comes up actually thinking of other people and you've got the audacity to say, you wear your depression like a designer handbag. Man, so all the people who suffer from anxiety and forms of depression who follow Piers Morgan, what are you thinking about that? Pompous prick. You go, girl.
I will do anything to help balance the fear-mongering. The other day, it said universities could become the care homes of the second wave. How dare they? And then it cuts to a clip of two presenters sitting going, it's terrifying, isn't it, to think that they're saying now that universities might become the care home, just as these young people on the threshold of their life are going back to university. It's absolutely disgraceful.
But Denise, I think there will be people watching this who are vulnerable people, who have family members who are vulnerable, who've been shielding, and they will say it is those very young people that you're talking about who are going and not social distancing, not wearing their masks.
I'm not
they
talking
don't
about
suffer
those
too badly from
I'm not
COVID, but
talking about
taking
those,
it
and I'm not
back
saying,
home. That's,
Ruth, I'm not saying about the social distancing. I'm not, the thing is, because if you talk about this, which is the truth. So the other day, if I put something out, which is everything I do, I have researched. I can't tell you how important this is to me. And another thing I'd like to point out, Ruth and Eamon and Sarah, is that I asked ITV if they would like to sign an NDA today so that I can show them the amount of NHS doctors, nurses, dentists who are coming to me, a T-list celebrity, according to megastar Piers Morgan, about I'm basically telling the truth. So I was saying the other day.
Now, Denise, you skipped off that. You've asked ITV to sign an NDA. So that, for me, is a non-disclosure agreement. So that means ITV has stifled the doctors, or the doctors being named, numbered, who agreed with what you're saying. They wouldn't allow you to do it. Is that what she's saying? So this is where it comes to, is the mainstream media, I mean, we know this, but let's say it again, is the mainstream media for the people or against the people? Does it claim to be unbiased, but is the most biased thing that you will watch? Because it doesn't give people another opinion. That's all. No one's saying here, and Denise isn't, don't wear a mask, run out, don't adhere to social distancing, don't respect other people's opinions and just go and do what you want. No, it's actually saying there's a vast majority, well, I'm saying there's a vast majority of people on this population that are really going through a hell of a lot of depression because they're being affected by lockdown measures and guidelines, what shouldn't necessarily have to affect them. The way this has all been conducted, you've got to agree that there's an element of negligence, there's mistakes, there's over proportionate behavior, which is affecting people and the economy and lives more, way more than is justifiable for the actual COVID-19 itself. Doesn't mean to say you think it's all a scam, although the way it's being played out, because it's so over proportionate in many different facets, it does make you think, our population's being brought to heel under something that is being rolled out as over proportionate. And because of the scaremongering and because of people's fear of it, are you now starting to see people who are just simply becoming acquiescent to the narrative rather than critically thinking?
2,800 people were on ventilators where coronavirus was involved at the peak. The other day, 52 were. To me, that is good news as how we have moved forward. I'm not saying this is over. I am not saying how horrendous this virus is and was. But at the moment, we have a 1 in 2 million chance of dying of COVID. And I have a 1 in 3 chance of getting cancer.
There are numbers there. They want to put out all the implementations over COVID for the fear of it spreading. They've been saying over and over again, haven't they, with cancer, which are crazy figures. It was never there 30 years ago for them figures. Now they're saying 1 in 2 within the next 10, 20 years. So you know there's a big surge in cancers, various forms of cancers. One, breakdown on the various ways that you can get cancer, or 2, the various ways that you can avoid cancers. Surely we've got the knowledge to break that down. It just seems to be we get it, and there you go. Put your pink ribbon on, go and run over there, put the money in the jar, and we'll try and make it a better place. Surely, with 21st century thinking, we should be able to try and curtail a lot of it, whether we can, whether we can't. Does it have to just resort to pharmaceutical drugs? Is there a health and well-being that we could all inject in our lives that would eradicate cancer? Get on that. Are they telling us that? It seems like the narrative is there's nothing you can do about it except the fact that it's just growing, which to me seems to fund the pharmaceutical companies more than anything else.
So please, can the government just tell us the proper statistics?
What do you want the government to do? You're clearly very passionate about it, obviously very angry about it. What do you want them to do? Because they will say that they are listening to the advice from health professionals, won't they?
Yeah, they did listen to advice. Neil Ferguson was one of them, wasn't he? Epidemiologist. What was his original figures? 500,000 people were due to be affected and die through this COVID. So because of them figures, fucking hell, we've got to do something. Shut all gates, all doors, everywhere. And where's the figure at? It's nowhere near 500,000. But yet, we've still got the exact same implementations that have been somewhat relaxed, but the fear is still there, like Denise is saying. Should the fear be just as relevant when they're saying 500,000 as it is now with the amount of deaths that we've got, and we know the likelihood of the average individual getting it? So that's what the government should be listening to. Ruth, Gray.
And they are going on that. They're going on numbers, advice, looking at other European countries where there are spikes. What do you want them to do?
Yeah, there are spikes, Ruth, can I just say, at the moment, and I'm talking about at the moment, not when the flu season starts, I'm talking about at the moment. These spikes are positive tests. At the moment, they are not leading to increased hospitalizations and deaths. Also, a very, very, very high up doctor who came to me via direct message on Twitter was telling me about the failures within this testing system and how it is picking up old coronaviruses that may have been someone that was positive 6 weeks ago that's not infectious. So if we have a government that can snap their fingers and put us into lockdown, have the decency to explain why and to explain the testing. Have the decency as to why so many people were put down as a COVID death when they hadn't even been tested. Have the decency to explain why if you tested positive for COVID-19, within 6 weeks, if you die in a car accident, you're put down as a COVID death.
This is all legitimate things. But isn't it funny? You've got Mr. and Mrs. Gray there that's saying Jack. They're being Mr. and Mrs. Balance. They've got to be resonating with some of the things that she's saying here. And not just then go back to the position of, well, the government know what they're doing. Now, Denise, you're coming across a bit conspiratorial. Are you saying the government? And this is the attitude.
You're not allowed to question the narrative on such things.
Honestly, I love this, Denise, the way she's coming out. This is like a sheer working class mentality that fails to see the logic in what's going on, and he's not afraid of speaking up. Where you've got Mr. and Mrs. Gray there that are just acting like they don't want to really rock the boat in any way. And they're too fearful of the fact that if they do not say the right thing in this show, they're not going to be sat behind that desk tomorrow. You know, when you think of how detrimental that can be. It's all right, Piers Morgan having a bit of Denise and saying, you know, you're affecting, you could be endangering people's lives. She's not. She's informing people. But at the same time, I'm going to flip it on yous. Mr. and Mrs. Gray and Piers Morgan, with the way you're being somewhat complicit, or at least not allowing people to critique this so-called narrative that we've got to get, you're creating danger to people's lives. Aren't you? Talking about cancer, because of the element of the curtailments, and no one can go near a hospital and no one can speak to anyone now, you know, and particularly seeing a doctor, they'd rather speak to you on a phone than do anything else. How many people have got cancer? How many people have become terminal that had elements of cancer over the lockdown period? But I guess to think that, it means you're wearing your depression like a designer bag, Piers.
OK, well, let's see if we can provide any of these answers to you with our doctor, Dr. Sarah. You've listened to a very impassionate Denise there. She says she's not a conspiracy theorist. She's not an anti-vaxxer. She's not extremely right-wing on all of this.
Mr. Gray, do you see how he's built a straw man there? He built a straw man 3 ways there. The 3 strawmen of the apocalypse. That's what he's just done there. She's not a conspiracy theorist, so why did you throw that out? There was no need. That is not a conspiracy. She was just giving her opinion. She's not a right-winger, far-right. Why did you throw that out there? Why has far-right politics got to do with Denise Welch speaking about something that's affecting her and anyone else who suffers from depression and anxiety? Why are we doing that again? Why have you got to be a Nazi to go against any narrative that the government gives out? She's not telling people not to anti-vax. I'm an anti-vaxxer. It's because I don't want shit pumping in me. But I'm not now telling people not to get a needle. That is my informed decision. And I can articulate as to why I do not want a vaccination, why I do not need it, and furthermore, why my children are totally happy and cognitive without that shit in them. But yet, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're an anti-vaxxer, and you're freaking far right. Mr. and Mrs. Gray, you should be ashamed of yourself.
She just says...
Extremely right-wing. I'm not remotely right-wing, Eamon.
OK, I'm only using your quote back at you, right? So just calm down, right? And we'll try and get the doctor.
Just calm down. Mr. Gray here, you know what? I had so much respect for this man, right? If people don't know, I'm a lifelong Manchester United fan, right? I'm not divide and conquer. I love City fans as well, yeah? We have our little bit of ribbing. I don't take it too seriously. As you'll see on the emblem in the corner, you'll see a B with the red and the blue. United and City, all in Manchester. Never mind the jokes. Thanks a lot for that, guys. But one love. Don't give a fuck. Pardon my French. He, as far as I'm concerned, is a lifelong Manchester United fan, right? So I've always had a kin to this guy. Because he's been on MUTV, he's like, he loves United, he's met Fergie, he's done all the rounds. You know what I mean? Listen to him now. As a celebrity, I'm going off him. Seriously, I'm going off him and the way he thinks. And because she's passionate, right? Because she's revved up, because she knows what she's talking about, and she can articulate herself. Okay, she might be not the most composed at this moment, Mr. Gray. The bottom line is, don't condescend her, don't patronize her. Look at him with his hand up. Calm down, calm down. There's people who are literally depressed in this country because of this. That is the government's fault. They've got to play a role in the way they've handled this. There's people that are being attacked. There's robberies going on.
So just calm down, right? And we'll try and get the doctor.
There's all kinds of things that have gone on as a consequence of these lockdown guidelines, Mr. Gray. So when you're telling people to calm down, man, and I've said this before, on a psychological level, right? You know what he's doing there. He's getting the psychological upper hand on Denise. And it's slick, and you're out of order, Mr. Gray. You bang out of order, because he knows by saying to her, calm down, 9 times out of 10, when someone is expressing themselves with passion, maybe with anger, but let's say passion in this case, because she's not angry and she's not a conspiracy theorist, but because she's displaying it in that way, he's turned it round in his little composed greyness, knowing that Mr. Independent there has got a career, yeah? All he has to do is go, calm down, calm down. Then he's psychologically got the upper hand on her, and he's made her look like she's being over emotional. So when she's being over emotional, it means you're not really being rational at this point. And that's what he's doing, or at least it feels like it. She's on her own here. And look at her face. They're both sitting out here, and she's a very good friend. And I know this is balance, so I'm not attacking these two too much, but I am severely disappointed that they've not really stuck up for it in any way here. And they've made it out to be some kind of conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, freaking far-right nut.
I think there's always going to be bias in the media. So you'll always have a statistic saying, one paper will say the cases are on the rise, there is a spike. The exact same figures will be taken by another media outlet, which will say, we're improving our testing and we're therefore able to track and trace and isolate better.
That is very true. But you're not seeing too many people, too many media giving you the good stories, giving you the recovery rate, focusing on the way we're getting better, focusing on the health and well-being of people that are struggling in this country. No, we're not doing that. So as much as you're saying, yeah, well, you're always going to be able to see figures 2 ways, we're only getting it projected at us one way. And you know that, but you're looking after your career as a family doctor on one of the biggest TV shows in England.
I think for me, it's really important that we look at the death rates, we look at the number of hospitalizations, the number of people on ventilators, and those are on the decrease despite the spikes in number of cases, which usually indicates that actually we are managing to actually track and trace and isolate as well as we'd like. Right
then, why are you agreeing with Denise? Because Denise has just said there, even though it does appear that there's an elevation of recovery, why are you not advocating the press actually promoting that fact? Because they should. Don't just scare people.
I do also think that there is so much to this virus we don't know still. Yes, it's been around, since December, and we're getting more knowledge.
We're getting more knowledge. Remember the time we were told this is exclusively come from bats? Remember that bullshit?
But we don't know how our immune system is going to work in terms of our antibodies, whether we will be immune to it, for how long we're going to be immune to it. And we also don't know how it's going to affect us come the winter and when the flu season and other winter viruses come around.
Everything she just said there, put all that onto a vaccination. Them same little theories that she just had and applied to that. If you had a vaccination, are you going to be, what's going to happen 6 months down the line? Bearing in mind that the actual test period for any vaccination is not being adhered to with this, because they can't wait to get the vaccination out. Now, we know in order to have anything that's resembling a safe and effective drug, which even the ones that are tested for multiple years, several years, you still have issues. So with this, within 18 months, we're going to have a drug that's just going to get rolled out everywhere. What about people's immunity then? How's that going to affect people? What about other drugs that seem to be doing something? She got an opinion on this? No.
So I do think we still need to be cautious, but there are positives that we are learning from this. And I can see why Denise is upset in terms of mental health, because it's taking a huge toll on mental health. And, you know, I've seen it even in clinics, and I've seen how my patients are suffering with it. But I think we do still need to be cautious. We do still need to practice social distancing, wearing masks, washing hands.
See, Denise, this is all quite complicated because this is a time of national emergency. And as I know from myself at the start of all of this, you're not allowed to question the narrative on such things.
There you go. There you go. Mr. Gray has just come out with the very reason why he's took this stance today.
So there are restrictions on publications, there are restrictions on broadcasters, and there will be a lot of people saying that you are simply rabble-rousing, you're creating panic with all of this.
How am I creating panic, Eamon? I'm giving the data, which the other day I said, Doncaster Hospital celebrates 8 weeks without a COVID case. Someone put, oh, I'm sick of this, you're disgusting. Is that not great? Do you know why? Because when the flu season comes, the NHS is overwhelmed every single year, particularly in years like 2017, 2018, when 30,000 people died, excess deaths related to flu and cold conditions. We never heard about that because none of us knew this rolling count thing. It happens every year. But the fact is that before the flu season happens and before people are allowed to put things down as COVID death when maybe they haven't been tested, all I want to say to people is, 5 months ago, the wonderful doctors and nurses in the NHS, nobody knew about this is what they're telling me. Nobody knew about it. But now we have dexamethasone, we have hydrocortisone, we have Remdesivir, we have proning the patients instead of putting them on ventilators. All I'm saying is that we don't need to go back, hopefully, to where we were 5 months ago.
Yes.
That's surely good news. That is not me rubber
what you're saying to people who are maybe watching this at home today and are not in work, you're saying, let's stop all this lockdown business and get back to work. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Well, I'm not saying...
No, she's not saying that at all. She's saying, and you said it, the narrative that's being put out, that there's only one way to treat this, and that's with the vaccination. And the implementations in terms of guidelines, masks, and when you can go out, when you can't, when you can go for a drink, how you can go and do it. And she's saying that's not really accurate if you put in line with the actual COVID itself on the actual disease. It seems over proportionate. Over proportionate.
I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm trying to allay the fears of people who think that if they go outside and touch somebody, they're going to die of coronavirus. There is more chance of us walking outside and being hit by a bus at the moment than dying of this virus at the moment. And so why, therefore, are we still prioritizing this virus over everything else? The cancers are 500 a day. They always are.
And Mr. Gray there, I know he didn't use the words, but he was being so balanced that it was his words. He actually said, people will accuse you of rabble-rousing.
That you are simply rabble-rousing, you're creating panic.
What are they doing? What are the media doing? She's just outlaying the positives to this getting better. She's not saying it doesn't exist. It's the media that are constantly saying that if you don't listen to us, it's going to get worse. The way that we need to do it is to do it this way. And we know that it's not necessarily true to say that, because by listening to their narrative, I will say it again, by listening to their narrative, the amount of different multiple demonstrations that you have, if someone could show me figures of the COVID spikes that has been a consequence of people not social distancing because the multiple events that have been going on for the past 3-4 months, where are the spikes around the world within the Black community, the Muslim community, the white community that justifies it? We're talking many millions of people, one way or the other, one way or the other, have been out protesting about various things. Where are the figures? Because the fear mongering that is out now in regards to COVID-19 justifies that we would have to have had a second spike of mass proportions in key areas around the globe. We're not seeing it. But then to say that COVID doesn't exist, I ain't saying that either. If people don't want to believe that, I know people who have been affected by COVID. I know people that supposedly have died from COVID. So I know of their physical state before they got COVID. So I'm balancing it out with that. But to suggest it's not there is redundant. It's fucking there, all right. But yet the implementations on the whole population overproportionate.
Heart disease. My GP friend told me in tears that she has had middle-aged men presenting on the phone, going through a heart attack because they will not go to their local hospital because we have frightened people into thinking that they're death zones.
Who's rabble-rousing now? Who's creating fear now? She's just said there.
The local hospital she refers to has zero COVID and has had for weeks.
Let's hear what the doctor says.
Sorry, we had a man on the show last week whose cancer is now terminal because he couldn't get his treatment. And do you think that the people are too frightened to come out? The message needs to change. It's like, yes, we have to be careful, but we've got to stop being so frightened and be able to come out of our homes, go back to work, go back to hospitals, get your treatment.
Right, before this doctor speaks, that's all Denise is saying. So they're pretty much setting the question to the doctor. Well, let's see what she says. But ultimately, you've just castigated her as an anti-vaxxer, right-wing, and a frigging off her head, right? In reality, what you've just delayed now is exactly what Denise is saying, and that's coming from a position of being rational.
Oh, it's imperative that if you are not well, if you're getting any new symptoms, you need to discuss it with your GP. Unfortunately, with this coronavirus pandemic, we know that there are going to be the people that died from coronavirus, but there was also going to be the indirect deaths, those that died because they weren't able to get to hospital appointments, too scared to go to hospital appointments, and then also the long-term deaths, those that die as a result of, not being able to get the education, the finance, all the other things that are needed to survive long term. And I think it's so important that, please, if you have symptoms, you must speak to your GP.
That's it. That's it. You've just put it out there that you're totally in agreement with what Denise is saying, even though you've all made it out to be a conspiracy theorist, but you're all in agreement. But is that the only thing that people can ring the doctor for is about COVID? What if they've got proper illnesses that's not being adhered to? Denise has got a point here. It's almost like the doctors now are literally going, right, COVID, stay away, stay away, stay away. Only really get in touch if you've got COVID. And I know it's not like that because I'm sure you can ring your doctor up for any other ailment like you did before.
We had a man on the show last week whose cancer is now terminal because he couldn't get his treatment. And do you think that the people are too frightened to come out? That the message needs to change?
The chances of you actually seeing a doctor is very slim. Well, non-existent. Chance of you speaking to him. You imagine the diagnosis that they're going to be doing for multiple ailments to people over a fucking phone. How can you do that when a doctor needs to look in the whites of your eyes, needs to see your body language, needs to examine you?
At the moment, people aren't putting their sick relatives into hospital because they won't be able to see them, and it's criminal. Okay. If the hospital is anyway. Sorry, anyway. I know I'm passionate about this.
But you're not alone, Denise.
You're allowed to be passionate, Denise.
We're looking at other celebrities here. John Bishop saying no one is suggesting COVID-19 is not a significant problem, but to change the way we all live, the damage that is doing to our young people, which is a point that Denise was talking about mental health. Lord Alan Sugar says basically get your can't say that next bit, back in there now to work. Same with local councils, big business isn't helping, we need people back to work. And the football commentator Jeff Stelling says, I am just frustrated by the nanny state wanting to make sure I will live forever, or at least what feels like forever. Now, Do celebrities, do people in the public eye like Denise speaking out help you, hinder you, give you confidence, reassure you, speak for you or not? Let us know throughout the programme.
All right, Mr. and Mrs. Gray, I'll let you know right now. People like Denise help tremendously. People like Mr. and Mrs. Gray hinder the population because their lack of grit, their lack of gusto, yeah, their lack of kahunas really pisses me off, because that tells me that really you could watch a tsunami come in and you're going to sit there and tell everyone it's still a fucking sunny day out there until the tsunami hits. And that's what worries me, when people really project celebrities like this. And because the celebrities are too lily to have a pair of balls and go, well, don't employ me as a presenter then if you're not going to upset me for me and my opinions. And I think this is so bad when it happens, and you can see it. And as much as these guys are balanced, don't dislike them in any way. I'm just very disappointed the way they both come across with this. And I'm disappointed the fact that this is the state of the middle of the grounds presenters that we have now. You can see they don't want to speak out. You've got celebrities there that was prepared to speak out, and fair play to all of them. When you think that a presenter is loved for the way they can portray themselves, their eloquence, the nice words, the way they can ultimately represent a nation. They ain't representing me with this. Whether they represent you guys, that's your opinion. They ain't representing me. So with that, leave your comments in the comment section, guys. Thank you for your time, for listening to me and my ramblings with this. Not creating fear, not spreading fear, just creating true balance, allowing people to think, not be detrimental, just to think. So this is Red Pill Phil, guys. Thank you all. I love you all.
I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all.
Even the pissing haters.
I love you all. 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 I love you all.